$1,840. That's what's sitting in your checking account the morning you turn 36. Not your savings, your checking account. The number that's supposed to carry you until the next paycheck, and it's already thinner than it should be. You know it before you even open the app, because you felt this exact tightness in your chest before. It's a Sunday. The laptop is balanced on a pillow, the TV playing something you stopped watching 20 minutes ago. Your partner is asleep in the next room, and you're doing the thing you do every few months where you tell yourself you'll just check one account. Somehow, you're 3 tabs deep into every account you own. Your salary is $81,200 a year. That's $6,766 a month before taxes, $4,890 after everything gets taken out. Rent is $1,850. Car payment, $410. Insurance, $240. Minimum on the credit card, $175. Groceries, $520. The gym membership you haven't used in 4 months, $59. Streaming services you forgot to cancel, $61. Add it up and you should have $1,575 left over. Your statement says you spent $1,690 in a category your bank just labels Other. You've been bleeding $115 a month for over a year, and you never noticed, because $115 doesn't feel like anything. It feels like a coffee here, a delivery fee there, a subscription you meant to cancel 3 months ago. It's never one decision. It's 40 small ones wearing a disguise. You scroll back further than you meant to. 6 months of statements, then 12, then 18. A 14.99 charge from an app you downloaded once and forgot existed. A $22 late fee from a bill you were sure you'd paid on time. A recurring $8.99 charge you genuinely cannot identify, no matter how long you stare at the merchant name. None of it is dramatic, and that's exactly what makes it unbearable to look at. There's no single villain in this story. There's just 18 months of not looking closely enough, and the quiet arithmetic of what that costs, compounding in the background the entire time. You close the laptop. You sit there in the blue light of the paused TV, and something in you goes very quiet. Not panicked, just quiet. The way it gets right before a decision you've been avoiding for years finally arrives. Here's what nobody tells you about starting at 36. You are not too late. You are also not early, and pretending otherwise wastes time you genuinely don't have to waste. The people who started at 24 got 12 years of compounding you will never get back. That's real. That's math, not pessimism. Grieve it if you need to, give it one night, then move on. Because staying frozen at the same number for another decade costs you infinitely more than the 12 years already gone. Here's what else is true. You're 36 with a full decade of professional experience behind you. You know how to negotiate. You know how systems work. You're not learning to walk while everyone else is running. You're simply running from a different starting line, and the race is longer than people admit. Invest $750 a month starting now, average a 9% annual return, and you'll have just over $1.3 million by the time you're 65. That number isn't motivational, it's arithmetic. It sits quietly behind every choice you make from this point on, whether you look at it or not. But $750 a month means something has to change first. It means finding the $115 leak and closing it. It means facing the credit card balance, $4,200 at 22% interest, honestly, instead of glancing past it. It means actually deciding that the version of you at 50 matters more than the version of you eating out 4 nights a week right now. The first goal isn't retirement. It isn't even the emergency fund yet. It's $2,000 sitting untouched in a savings account. A number that feels almost embarrassingly small to say out loud at 36. That embarrassment is exactly why so many people your age never say it out loud at all. They'd rather pretend they're further ahead than admit they're starting the real work now. You cancel the gym you don't use, $59 back. You call your insurance company, sit through a hold that outlasts your patience twice over, and switch providers. $34 a month saved. You sell the road bike in the garage you rode twice last summer. $310. You start packing lunch 4 days a week instead of buying it. Roughly $160 a month. One Tuesday morning, you check the account. $2,140. You don't celebrate. There's no one to tell. And even if there were, how do you explain that $2,140 feels like more than it sounds like? But something in your chest loosens slightly. Proof, small and specific, that direction can change. At 37, you've automated $500 a month into a Roth IRA and $250 into a high-yield savings account. The money leaves before you can talk yourself out of it. You live on what's left. It's tighter some months than others, but it holds. Then the water heater goes. You hear it before you see it, a low hum turning into a hiss in the basement on a Thursday morning in November. The plumber quotes $1,650 for a full replacement. 2 years ago, this would have gone straight onto the credit card, sitting there for months, quietly growing at 22%. Instead, you pay it from savings. You feel the account drop, feel your stomach tighten watching the number fall, but you don't go backward. You rebuild the fund over the next 3 months, one automated transfer at a time. Somewhere in the middle of that year, you sit down and actually read your 401k statement for the first time in 3 years. Not skim it, read it. You find a fund eating 1.2% in fees every single year. A number so small it looks harmless on the page until you run it forward across 30 years and realize it's quietly going to cost you over $94,000 by retirement. Not because anyone stole it, because you never looked closely enough to notice it leaving. You spend a Saturday afternoon on hold with your provider, then another hour reading prospectuses you don't fully understand, and you move everything into a low-cost index fund charging 0.04%. 0.04%. Nothing about your life changes that day. No one notices. But $94,000 just quietly stayed in your future instead of someone else's fee structure. Nobody throws a party for that kind of victory because it's invisible, and because explaining it to anyone outside your own head takes 20 minutes they didn't ask for. At 38, something shifts that has nothing to do with your account balance. You're standing in a hardware store on a Saturday, deciding between 2 sets of work boots. One is $58, the other is $145 with a 10-year warranty and actual steel support. 5 years ago, you'd have grabbed the cheaper pair without a second thought. Instead, you stand there calculating cost per wear across a decade, and you buy the $145 pair. You sit in your car afterward and realize you're thinking in years now, not in the next paycheck. Nobody taught you this. It grew in quietly while you weren't watching. At 39, your company announces layoffs on a Wednesday afternoon. The email is careful, corporate, full of the word restructuring. By 4 o'clock, people are quiet in the specific way that means everyone is messaging someone privately. You go home and run the numbers. Your savings covers 4 months at current spending. Your portfolio is there if things get worse, untouched. You're not safe exactly, but you're not one missed paycheck from collapse either, the way you were at 34. The cuts happen 2 weeks later. 14 people. You keep your job, but 2 people you'd had lunch with every week for 3 years do not. You feel relief and guilt at the same time, and underneath both, a colder clarity. This will happen again, to you or to someone near you, and the only real defense is time bought by a number in an account. You raise your emergency target from 4 months to 7. You don't touch the investments to do it. At 40, your friend Devin leases a Tesla. He doesn't call it a lease, he calls it basically owning it, and changes the subject fast. You've done enough of this math by now to know what $890 a month for 6 years actually costs, and you know roughly what Devin makes. Those 2 numbers sitting next to each other tell a story he hasn't let himself read yet. You're in the passenger seat once, and you feel the pull of it, the quiet in the cabin, the way the door closes like something engineered to feel important. A voice in you says, "You've been disciplined for 4 years now. Don't you deserve this?" You notice the voice. You don't argue with it or shame yourself for having it. You just let it pass the way you'd let weather pass, because you've learned the difference between desire and desire on a schedule. The question was never whether you want it. The question is what it costs you in years. $890 a month for 72 months is over $64,000 for a car worth half that the day the payments stop. You drive home in your 7-year-old Accord and feel something that takes a minute to name. Not envy, something closer to clarity, knowing exactly what you're doing and why. At 41, you get a promotion you didn't fully expect, and your salary jumps from $89,000 to $114,000. This is the moment that quietly determines whether the last 5 years actually meant anything. Because here's what almost happens. The second the new number hits your account, your brain starts pricing out a bigger apartment, a nicer car, the life that finally matches the title on your new business card. You catch yourself mid-search on an apartment listing, $2,400 a month for an extra bedroom you'd use twice a year, for guests who visit twice a year. You close the tab. Instead, you raise your 401k contribution by the exact percentage your raise represents, and you never see that money in your checking account long enough to miss it. Your lifestyle on paper looks almost identical to the year before. Internally, you just accelerated your entire timeline by roughly 4 years, and nobody watching your life from the outside would ever be able to tell. Your portfolio crosses $60,000 on a Tuesday in March. You check the app between meetings the way you have for years now, out of habit rather than anxiety, and the number reads $61,400. You go back to your meeting. You eat lunch at your desk. But the number sits with you all day, low and warm. This is the first milestone that feels structural rather than symbolic, a foundation poured and curing that everything else will sit on top of. At 42, your father calls on a Sunday evening, sounding careful, rehearsed, the way people sound when they've practiced what they're about to say for days. His truck needs a transmission, $3,400. He's been putting off the call because he doesn't know how to ask. You tell him not to worry about it. You transfer the money the next afternoon without touching the portfolio, without going into debt, without losing a night of sleep over it. What stays with you isn't the $3,400. It's the sentence you said without hesitation. I've got it. 5 years earlier, that sentence would have meant a quiet calculation of what card to use, how many months to pay it back, a private shame about being an adult who couldn't absorb a family emergency cleanly. This time you just helped, and that, more than any number in any account, is the first moment you understand what this was always for. Not a balance, capacity. The ability to say yes to the people you love without it costing you your footing. That same year, you and your partner finally sit down and combine your finances for the first time, 4 years into the relationship. It's nowhere near as romantic as it sounds. It's a Tuesday night at the kitchen table with 2 laptops open. You find out she has $11,000 in student loans, an exact number you never knew. She finds out you've been quietly carrying $2,100 on a store card from a bedroom set you bought 3 years ago and never mentioned, because it felt embarrassing. There's a version of that night that turns into a fight. It almost does, for about 4 minutes. Instead, you both go quiet, then start building a joint spreadsheet, tab by tab, the way you built your own years earlier. You combine your emergency funds into one account, $9,200 total. You agree on a number, $400 a month, that goes toward her loans until they're gone. You both stop hiding purchases from each other, not because someone demanded it, but because hiding them had quietly been costing you both more than money. 18 months later, her loans are gone. You didn't do that alone. Wealth built with another person stops being a solo spreadsheet and starts being a shared language. And learning to speak it without shame took longer than paying off the actual debt did. At 43, your portfolio generates more than $7,800 in a single year from growth alone. No new contributions, just the machine running on its own while you sleep, while you're sick, while you forget to check the app for 2 straight weeks. You built this one transfer at a time through a water heater, a layoff scare, a kitchen table conversation that could have gone badly and didn't, a market dip, and a phone call from your father that once would have wrecked your month. By 44, your credit card is paid off completely. A debt that had quietly followed you since your late 20s is gone in one transfer that feels both enormous and strangely quiet, the way real milestones usually do. You have a diversified portfolio, a maxed Roth IA, a small taxable brokerage account. And here's the part nobody says out loud. You feel a specific kind of loneliness at dinner with old friends. Some are in real financial pain that's hard to watch up close. Some earn more than you and spend all of it without seeming to notice. Some have quietly made peace with a retirement plan built on hope and vague assumptions about Social Security. You've tried bringing it up gently, twice. It went nowhere both times. People don't change their relationship with money because someone mentioned index funds at dinner. They change it alone, at a kitchen table, at 1 a.m., staring at a spreadsheet that finally got too uncomfortable to ignore, the way you did. You can't manufacture that moment for someone else, so you carry the gap quietly. You split the bill evenly, even when you ordered less. You don't perform discipline as a personality trait, you just live inside it, the way most people never see. At 45, your daughter is born on a Wednesday in late July, 6 years after that first kitchen table conversation. 2 weeks later, running on almost no sleep, you open a 529 account for her before you've even finished setting up her room. $150 a month, automated, the same way everything else has been automated for years now. You do the math without meaning to, the way you do math about everything now. Keep contributing $150 a month for 18 years at a 7% return, and she'll have roughly $58,000 waiting for her before she's old enough to understand what any of it means. You're not trying to hand her a life she didn't earn. You're trying to hand her a starting line further forward than $214 in a checking account and a decade of catching up. You're trying to give her the 12 years you didn't get. You hold her at 3 a.m. some nights and think about the version of you at 36 on that couch, calculating a $115 leak like it was going to save your life. In a way, it did. Not because $115 was ever the point, because that Sunday was the night you stopped being someone things happened to. You wake up on your 46th birthday before coffee, before your phone. You lie in the dark and think about the couch, the paused TV, the $1,840, the $115 leak you almost never found. Then you check the number, $310,000. Not financially free by any definition the internet uses, but 46 years old with $310,000 in real, working, liquid wealth, built from a decade's start, built from a credit card at 22% interest, built from one honest Sunday when you finally stopped looking away. The median American at 46 has a net worth well under half of that. You didn't inherit it. You weren't lucky in any way that explains it. You started, then you automated the behavior before the motivation ever fully arrived. And you kept going through every single moment that would have justified stopping. 10 years ago, you thought this would feel like a number. It didn't. It felt like paying for a water heater without your stomach dropping. It felt like surviving a round of layoffs without collapsing. It felt like telling your father, "I've got it," and meaning every word of it. Most of all, it felt like waking up one Sunday morning and realizing the future had quietly stopped being something that happened to you and become something you were still building, one transfer at a time.